And welcome to another edition of Coffee with Graeme here on Amateur Sports TV. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. Thanks for tuning in to today's live edition of Coffee with Graeme. We've done this a few times now. It's been fun going live these few times that we have been, and we're deciding to do it again today. Today we got a coach of a softball team in the U19 League in the Winnipeg Southwest Fast Pitch Softball League. I think that's the league name, but it's the coach of the Bonivital East U19 team, Sheldon Oshanyk, joining us. And his team this season has had a season to remember, a season for the books, as they went 18-1 in the regular season. They claimed third in the province at this year's provincial championships, and they're also going for gold this Sunday in the city championships. We're going to get into that and a lot more here on the show today. Right now, we bring in the head coach himself, Sheldon Oshanyk. Sheldon, thanks for joining us today, man. How are you doing on this morning?
Good morning, everyone. I'm doing great.
That's great. That's great. And thanks for joining us on the show today. I'm excited to get down to some softball with you today. We're, like I said in the intro, we're going to talk about the regular season, talk about the provincial championships as well, and how your team fared in that, as well as the city championships, as you guys are going to be going for gold. I heard it's this Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday at 2 o'clock at Southdale Diamonds, right beside the rec center.
Awesome. And for anyone that wants to catch some awesome softball action, you should go check that out this Sunday at 2 p.m. as they'll be playing Headingley and for the championship of the league. So just starting off with your team this season, a dominant season by you guys, 18-1, claiming first place in your league. And there really wasn't a time where you guys struggled throughout the season, except for one game where you guys lost against Kirkfield Westwood. And just talking about your team, Sheldon, your defense was so great this season. Your pitching, your infield, your outfield, as well as your offense as well with your bats. So I'm just going to start off with your defense, contributions from every aspect in the infield, from your pitch and from your outfield as well. The ability that your defense had to take the pressure off the bats to perform this season was probably the most apparent thing, as you guys only gave up an average of 3 runs per game. What would you say was probably the strongest aspect of your defense this season?
I'd have to go with probably our pitching was second to none throughout the league. Obviously, our pitching was never faltered really, and the girls, our pitching core, did an outstanding job throughout the year. But when there was hits, there was some unbelievable plays made within the infield and outfield. Like not one girl faltered in whatever position they would play. It was pretty fun as a coach to watch that stuff come down.
And I think because I came to probably like 95% of you guys' games, and just looking at your team, you guys had depth at every position, especially at first base. You had Laura Prokop, who was very steady-handed at that first base, didn't really drop a ball at all season when she was asked to make those plays. Talking about Jessica Lone, who is a pitcher as well for you guys, as well as Laura Prokop, and just talking about Alexa Novakowski as well. So just, do you think that probably your depth and just the ability for your players to play 2 positions was probably the strongest aspect of your team besides the pitching?
Oh, absolutely. Like if you can have a girl that plays like dual positions, because we did have a team of 16 players, which is kind of unprecedented. The ability to play infield and outfield becomes a you have to go play both. And especially if you want to play in a community club level where everybody needs to be rotated in and out of the infield and outfield, so that but you're making plays in both positions that you're put at, is like unbelievable. As a coach, it makes my job easier to say, hey, you go play this position, I don't have to worry about you. You know what I mean? So that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, and just a great problem to have was the 4 pitchers that you guys did have, and you decided to roll with 2 main pitchers. It was Jessica Lone and your daughter, Keely Oshanyk, who became the 2 main pitchers later on in the season. But you also had Laura Prokop, who one of your most accurate pitchers as well. And just talking about Adriana Graeme as well, who was a 16-year-old for you guys, and she ended up playing a lot for you guys in provincials. So a star-studded lineup, strengths in your pitching would be, what would you say were your strengths in your among your four pitchers?
I think the steadiness or the accuracy of our pitchers. Like, when you look at up and down the league and stuff like that. So a lot of times you can wait some pitchers out and get in that, get a few walks. And if you start getting that pitcher into the depths of a game where you can wait them out, now you start walking them, they get frustrated, and now we can start walking around the bases where our pitchers never really did that much. They had to be hit on, the batters had to be basically hit to get on base, otherwise they'd be struck out. We never walked really many pitchers. Our pitching core never really faltered that much. And if one girl was having troubles that day, guess what? We had three more to come and take the place. So it was a batting nightmare for other teams to see our lineup of pitchers, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'd say that was, like you said, the most notable thing about your defense was your pitching on how strong they were. And just talking about your offense, Sheldon, talking about how strong your batters were. I know Chloe Brand was one of your biggest hitters. You had Jada Salvaggio, who was a great hitter as well, and just stacked throughout the lineup. But when you have great pitching like you guys did, it was able to take off the pressure from these bats, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had. I think it was another nightmare for all the other teams that we played this year due to our batting depth. Like, normally what happens in like community club baseball or softball, if you want to have it, like, you get your weaker batters throughout the lineup, and the opposing pitcher above, like, oh, finally we get to see the 10th batter, and all of a sudden, the 10th batter in our team is crushing it over their heads, and the 15th batter is crushing it over their heads. You're like, what the heck is going on here? So I've had a few coaches come up to me and said, your lineup is ridiculous. From 1 to 16, it was a nightmare for all the pitchers. I'm sure that they're like, man, do we ever get a break from these hitters? And not one girl on our team couldn't hit the ball. You know what I mean? Like, it was either, some of them obviously, were long ball hitters, but any one of our girls would pull a double, triple out of their out, and it was not a big deal. So we did have a luxury of that throughout our lineup as far as batting goes. That was great. I had a good coaching staff to help me out with during practice to help, with just fine tune a lot of the batting, because at U19, well, you're not going to teach them that much stuff because they've got all their own habits, and and they're young adults, so they don't listen to us as much as we would like them to, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And just talking about how most of these players were adults for you guys. Well, not most of these players, but you guys had 5 19-year-olds on this team this year. A good
Yeah.
mix of youth and experience there. So just how big was that down the stretch when maybe in games you guys were down a bit and you guys needed some big runs to step up? That leadership from those 19-year-olds, how big was that?
Yeah, you know what? The 19-year-olds are great this year for their girls. I think they showed a lot of composure, and um, again, just helping the young girls go through this thing. They never down on anything. Girls, let's, keeping it positive, which is big, because I'm sure the younger girls are feeling a little bit, for the first half of the season, they're probably a little nervous to, hey, we're playing with the 3 year older girls, and we don't want to mess up or whatever it is. But our team was such a great team, up and down the lineup, and everybody was so good to each other that we never had any bad feelings or anything. That was such a great thing to see as a coach, that I never heard of any negative stuff. And it's nice as a coach, where you don't have to intervene with kind of the BS that sometimes goes with teams. We never really had any of that, which was good.
And it seemed like you guys had the buy-in right from the start. And like you said, no one really had a problem with each other, and it makes it so much easier, especially in a community league like the U19 softball league. And just going back to your offense, Sheldon, you hinted at it, and I can agree to this, as I did watch you guys pretty much all season long, that your 10th batter could crush it over the
Yes.
heads of their outfielders. Just talking about the way you structure the lineup, do you find it difficult at times with so much talent to kind of find that structure and balance in your batting lineup?
Yeah, coming into provincials, I think my coaching staff and myself, we're kind of looking at here's what, like, even the major leagues, they start off with a leadoff hitter that's going to get on base, and then you have your two batters that are going to be able to move that person around, and then the fourth batter is you usually try to get them to crush it somewhere. Usually the cleanup batter is what they call it, right? So we had 3 or 4 or 5 girls that would be cleanup batters, and I tried staggering that throughout the year. Like every fourth person would be our quote power hitter.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of girls that were really fast on things, so we had to spread all that out. But I didn't have anybody come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm batting 15th again." Or I'm like, "No, you know what? They did their job. They didn't complain about that, and realized that there were 16 girls on the squad. So throughout the year, I tried to move girls around, and if in regular season, if one girl's having a little bit of troubles, maybe they're in a slump or whatever you want to call it, that girl will move. That girl will be moved up to the top of the order.
Yeah.
Simply the fact that I treat our regular season as practice for provincials, for a tournament, or whatever you want to call it. So for them to get more reps in a game is more beneficial than the person that's hitting 1,000, really, because they're not in a slump. They get there because we do have 16 batters, or did have 16 batters. You might get, depends on the pitching or whatever we're faced, you might only get 2 at bats if you're down near the bottom of the order, right? So
Right.
I always found that if a girl's struggling, I always try to move them up to the top and see if
Right.
we can get some more reps, and so get some confidence going and stuff like that. So I think that's the way I've always coached throughout my all years of coaching. So make them a better player, not a worse player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely builds that confidence when they do get those more reps. I definitely got to agree with you on that one. So, just talking about regular season, and even though you kind of said that regular season is more of practice leading up to provincials, you guys dominated in the
Yeah.
regular season, 18-1. You only lost one game. And I want to get into that first loss because you guys started off 3-0, outscoring opponents by an average of 12-2 in those games. But then you faced off against Kirkfield, and just talking about how Kirkfield matched up with you guys as a team throughout the season and throughout that game.
Um, the pitching was really good. I think she throws a drop ball, and the girls weren't used to that, and so our bats kind of went dormant that game. We didn't hit. I think we hit a lot of uh, hard balls, but probably right at them. I don't really remember the game per se. I remember being questioning the umping a little bit. I know our pitchers were having some struggles with the umping because they had to be in behind the pitcher at the time because of the whole COVID
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
So so that didn't play into a couple of our pitchers' hands as far as, like, like if I know Jessica Lone is a low ball pitcher, so the umpire did, wanted to, not that I'm making excuses, but it's sometimes it's hard for a pitcher like Jessica throws a nice hard low ball, and now she's got to throw it up at the belt, and so kind of brought her pitching into what their realm is. So it was a tough game for our girls, and we didn't hit. So yeah, it happens. It was, it was I personally didn't mind having a loss because you got to learn how to be a good team. You have to learn how to lose too, and
Yeah.
it brings them down to earth a little bit when you have a close game, or if you lose a game. It's like, you know what, you're not invincible. You have to play hard every game, and keep your intensity up. If once you let that go, or if you're not paying attention in that game, you won't win. And that's exactly what happened.
And would you say that was probably the biggest message and takeaway that the team as a whole took away from that game, is that we know how talented we are, but if we're not on our A game against teams like Kirkfield, another team that you guys had some close games with was Bonivital West Blue, is that, teams could maybe take a run at them and, give them a run for their money.
Yeah, like it's interesting you say about Bonivital West, because it's kind of like, I guess, the Bonivital East, Bonivital West rivalry. If you go back in time where it was always Southdale against Dakota, so that's still kind of, I guess, the line in which the girls say, and they kind of bring their I think they bring their intensity up for that. Those are kind of games for sure. You can see it in our team when they decide that they want to bring it, or they want to, be, they bring their intensity up. You can see it in the bats right away. No, typically we've been pretty slow starting as far as our bats go. So you can,
Yeah.
By about the third inning, it's like now we're going to start seeing our bats. We may get the timing of the pitch or whatever it is, but with Bonivital West, we seem to hit well right away. I don't know. It's just a thing, I guess. I wish
Yeah.
the girls could bring that intensity all the time, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, for sure. And just talking about that game against Bonivital West, after that loss against Kirkfield, first off, you guys rolled and didn't even lose a game for the rest of the season. And it definitely was the wake up call that you guys needed going on that 15-game winning streak. But just some notable wins was again that early test against Bonivital West Blue, and just talking about the 6-3 win, the pitching performance that you got from your daughter, Keely Oshanyk, and she was showing a lot of strengths earlier prior to that game, but I felt like as a fan watching that game, this was a breakout game for Keely. So I'm wondering if you felt the same way.
Um, yeah, it's pretty hard for me to say a breakout game. I know that I know when my daughter's trying her 100%, or I can see when she's bringing her intensity up, right? She does have a big repertoire of pitches that I call for her during the game. And since yeah, she's been a pretty rock star as far as the pitching dynamics. She's been, not that I'm obviously a parent and stuff like that, but she's been one of the top pitchers, I think, in the league for the last X number of years. And this was a good challenge for her, being the younger player coming in to the U19 fold of the league. So she's now got another 2 years of pitching. So hopefully she decides that she wants to continue this track, and I can keep coaching her.
And as a father, as a coach, I'm sure that you're so proud of the consistency and the development of your daughter throughout these years, and just for her to be one of the younger players, and as you said, she has about 2 more years left at this level playing these older kids, and how she really shined this year. I'm sure there's a sense of pride there as not only a coach but a parent.
Yeah, for sure. I tried not to like be too proud, if you want to call it that. Like I'm still coaching, so I got to be fair and stuff like that. So I think I'm the hardest. I'm probably harder on her than any other um, kid in our roster, because I'm the dad too, right? So it's sometimes hard to differentiate those two roles, but for the most part, it's been pretty good over the years.
Yeah, yeah. And just moving on from that, talking about the win against Bonnie West Blue in that early season test that you guys had, the Bats, you said it that they come out to play usually against Bonivital West, but it was usually it was kind of a game where it was a defensive battle, and the Bats came up clutch for you guys in the end. But just the confidence from winning a close game like that against a rival, I'm sure that gave you guys a lot of confidence going forward, knowing that you can win those close games.
I specifically remember our after game talk that we had with our girls, and our other two coaches and us. We're super proud of them, because they played like a error-free game. It was a defensive battle. Both pitching on both sides was great. So having those close games, to me, is probably, I would love 18 of those games if we could have them. It brings the intensity up of the girls. They have to pay attention to the whole game, not just a couple of innings. You know what I mean? Throughout the year, like there's some games that obviously we got a hold of the bats and we beat some teams pretty handily. But like those games don't really teach your kids how to win in adversity, or in tight situations where you can't make an error. You got to make sure you stop that ball or stuff like that. So having 6-3 games and 3-2 games and stuff like that is probably the best for fans, for the coaches, for the players, because they don't, when it's a one-run game, there's not one girl that's not paying attention to the game, what's going on, cheering, picking each other up and that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely more attention to detail in those closer games to get the job done for sure. And I know as a fan, I enjoyed watching you guys blow out teams, but sometimes it got a little bit boring. So those closer games for sure were probably the most entertaining games to watch. So just moving into provincials now, and you guys cruised into provincials, the 15-game win streak, but especially in your last 3 games, 3 double-digit wins, and just talking about the areas that on your team that you focused on to prepare for provincials, because we know you guys had the bats already, you guys had the defense, but was it more about focusing on cleaning up those little mistakes in practice heading into provincials?
It was more focusing on let's bring the intensity up. Our last 3 games coming into provincials, I had a little talk with our team and said, "Listen, I need a 100% motivation or whatever. I'm trying to think of the word, but anyway, so focus, 100%
Yeah,
focus. Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
So I wanted 100% focus on in the last 3 games leading up to provincials. And basically that what that meant was like sometimes during the game, like your friend come to watch and you go and watch it. So I implemented what's called the no friend zone or no talk zone or no leave zone is what I called it. So they couldn't leave this area. Once they were in our area, they had to have they did 100% focus on the game, and that really showed us the coaching staff that they can do it. And what they've seen in the last 3 games coming up to provincials is that our bats are alive, our defense is alive. I don't even remember any errors in the last 3 games, which is pretty amazing. And the bats were all good, like you said, double-digit games. So that was what the focus was going into the provincials. And I think the coaching staff and us, we try to figure out a batting lineup where we produce the most runs in provincials. Obviously, you're trying to bring in your
Yeah.
who's hitting well right now, who's not hitting well right now. Try to move those juggles around. I think we changed a couple of things during provincials, so to try to get a better score, more runs, I guess you want to call it.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And just one thing that I noticed is we talked about how strong your pitching was earlier and how great your 4 pitchers were throughout the season, probably the best cast of pitchers in the league as a whole. But you guys decided to roll with 2 main pitchers, and that was
That's it.
Jessica Lone and Keely Oshanyk. I just want to get your thoughts on why you decided to roll with only 2 pitchers and didn't decide to, maybe bring in a third or a fourth pitcher in the game to maybe uh, don't get me wrong here. You're the coach and you know more than me, but just maybe take some pressure off of those 2 main pitchers and get them rested. I just want to know why you decided to roll with 2 main pitchers only when you have such a star-studded cast of pitchers.
Well, coaching staff and I, basically said like these are our 2 main pitchers, probably right at the beginning of the year. We didn't want to, and then we were trying to near the end of the year, in our regular season we started getting those 2 pitchers more reps, so that they would be because that's what we decided to go with the 2 main pitchers.
Yeah.
Um, it was just a feeling for that we had as a coaching staff that this would be the best way we would get into our to a gold medal game.
Yeah.
It's a decision that the coaches made, and then we just rolled with it. And hopefully, obviously we fell a little flat against Brandon. Our bats weren't there, but that's yeah.
And obviously, you guys did make a great decision rolling with those 2 main pitchers in Jessica Lone and Keely Oshanyk, your daughter. Just phenomenal play from them throughout those 3 days of provincials. And just talking about, because I know we're running short on time here, so I want to get into the day 1 and the day 2 of things, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to roll into day 3 of Championship Sunday. You guys finished 4-0, and you guys only didn't get first because Russell ended up scoring more runs than you guys, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
they,
it was modified.
yeah.
I guess it was a modified round robin, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you guys still finish 4-0. You get that top seed, and you start off against Swan Lake in that quarterfinal game. You guys end up winning that game, and just talking about how your bats, I hear the old saying, in Southdale and just in Bonivital East is that the bats seem to always come alive at the end of the games in like those fourth
Yeah.
and fifth innings. But you guys got that consistency from the start in that game.
Yeah.
So just talking about how your preparation, your mentality was that no friend zone thing you're talking about earlier, heading into provincials, would you say that your girls were maybe the most locked in that they were all season in that game?
I think so. I think the morning game, I think Cameron Mushko, she basically set the tone of that game. Keeley, I think either through the first or second pitch, I don't remember. And the girl absolutely crushed the line drive out to center field. And we're like, oh man, that was a big hit. Cameron got on her horse and made an outstanding basket catch in midfield, and that kind of set the tone of that whole game. If that goes the other way around, you never know what can happen. But she made an outstanding catch, and now our team is obviously pumped up, and their team was deflated because it was a good hit. There's nothing wrong with that hit, but sometimes she made a better catch.
Right. And I remember that catch, and I remember watching it, and I'm like, man, like you said, that girl really crushed that ball. And for Cameron to make that play, knowing that you guys have that confidence going forward, I think it was such a huge thing for you guys. So just moving into that semifinals versus Brandon, I've heard the rumor about how Brandon is always that team that gets Bonivital, and just the level of respect that you and the girls had for a team like Brandon, I'm sure that was pretty high for that team going in.
The Brandon has typically been the team to beat within provincials. Um, I, they're a good team. You can't take that away from them. Jessica pitched a great game. Just that they got on her bat, on her. Like it wasn't nothing that Jessica did. She did some great pitches, and they went down and got him. So that's just the way that happens. And the girls, I think when they play Brandon, they have it in their head that this is Brandon. If all of a sudden we could have changed their shirts and said Bonivital West, we probably beat them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying the battle will Bonivital, but they just have a different feeling for when it's Brandon versus any other team. I think it gets in their head a little bit. And as a coach, we can tell them as much as we want is that it's a nobody team. That's as soon as they see Brandon Heat, there's something about that, right? They get nervous. I don't think it's a focusing. It's more of a nervous thing, I think, for a lot of the girls that play Brandon. It's not hey, we can beat them. It's more of a nervous, oh God, they're so good. It's like no, they're just a bunch of girls, like that hit a ball well. Again, I would love to play them when we're at our top.
Right. And yeah, for sure. And you guys got off to that 5-0 deficit to start off the game, but then you guys fought in that game and only held them to 5 more runs after that, and you scored 4 runs. And obviously your bats started to come a bit alive a bit later in the game, but it was too late. But just talking about if you guys didn't get off to that 5-0 deficit, would you think that this game would look a lot different?
You know what? If you can, I think that if the girls stick close to them for the first couple innings, and then all of a sudden you get a couple of runs here and there, confidence starts building. Now their butterflies are out, and they're just playing the game. It's a age-old thing. As long as you can get a couple. I've always said that if you have one hit, you have 2 hits, it becomes contagious. So batting is always contagious is what my feeling is. So you get a couple hits, the next thing you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 girls are hitting, and now the other team is getting nervous because now we're putting runners on the bases and stuff like that. Like I think we had loaded bases maybe once or twice in that game, so all it took maybe one clutch hit, and we could have maybe gave them a good run for their money. Or made him a little more nervous anyways.
Right. And obviously a tough loss losing 10-4, but then you guys did bounce back nicely in that bronze medal game against Bonivital West, and you guys really dominated them in that game. Maybe playing with a bit of anger after going out against Brandon, but being able to claim 3rd place in the province is an exceptional feat for any team, and especially for a city team, because I've heard throughout the years it's always been those country teams that have usually placed higher than most of the city teams in provincials. So just the sense of pride of winning third in Manitoba, I'm sure, is something that you guys are proud you accomplished.
You know what? I was pretty proud of the girls actually after they were pretty defeated, I think, because I think for a lot of the older U19 girls, it was their last chance at getting gold. And having that defeated against them, I think it weighed pretty heavy on them and stuff like that, and I feel for them. But I was pretty proud of them to come back and play a really good game against Bonivital. It was pretty impressive, and I was pretty proud of the girls. The girls played awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just two more questions here. We're going to talk about just two players in particular that played the majority of the innings for you guys, and then we're going to talk about just the city playoffs and the game plan going in against Headingley in that championship game. But before we get to that, just Adriana Graeme and Jada Salvaggio played the majority of the innings for you guys in provincials, and they were exceptional for you guys. Jada was making these crazy acrobatic catches, and Adriana was a workhorse for you guys. Just for them, they're younger players on the team. They're not 19-year-olds. I think that Adriana's 16 and Jada is 17 now, but just the experience that they gained playing in those big moments, playing a lot of innings, I'm sure that it's something that you guys are pretty proud and excited to see going forward what they can do next year when maybe they get a year older.
Yeah. Jada is such a fast person that she makes these unbelievable catches that I don't think 90% of the league or the people in provincials would get it. And she's just a workhorse. She'll sacrifice anything in her body. Like, she's such a competitor. She just wants it all the time, and she's so good. Like, it's kind of funny watching her when she gets on base. If she does a double and she's sitting there clapping for herself, it's kind of interesting. If she gets geared, she gets herself so geared up that it's it's pretty cool to watch. And Abriana is she doesn't do any. She's a rock at second base, where she doesn't make a mistake. She just plays that position so well. Abriana did come from I think she played Smitty's a couple years ago. And then she moved over to the community club ball. But she's played that position so well too.
And I can't hear you anymore, Sheldon, but everyone else can hear you probably. This seems to happen a lot. But just one more thing before we let you go here. I know that you're a busy man, so we're gonna let you go after this question. But just talking about that championship matchup against Headingley, we talked about how it's on this Sunday, the gold medal game, 2 p.m. at Southdale Community Center. It's a big one. They're going for gold. Bonivital East is against Headingley, and just talking about how you guys match up with Headingley and what your strategy is going into that final gold medal game of the season.
I don't think our strategy is going to be any different. We'll play Keely and Jess for the majority of the innings, and we'll probably get Laura in for an inning or two. Again, hopefully our bats are lively. That's your defense can stop them from runs, but you still got to bat. You still got to score runs in order to win a game. So hopefully we can get on the bats early and bring home gold for the girls.
Well, that's awesome, Sheldon. I don't know what you said there, but I'm sure that you gave a pretty good strategy going in. I know that you don't want to give too much away unless they're watching, but great talking with you today, Sheldon. I wish you the best of luck in the gold medal game this Sunday at 2 p.m. at Southdale Community Center against Headingley U19. And I'm going to be there. I hope that everyone watching is going to come out and support this great team that you guys had this season, a great story that you guys had this season. And hopefully you guys are able to claim that gold this Sunday. So thanks for joining us today. I'm going to let you go now, and hopefully maybe we can talk again in the future.
Thanks, Graeme.
All right. Awesome. See you, Sheldon. And that was Sheldon Oshanyk, head coach of the Bonivital East U19 softball team, the female softball team. And what a year that they've had. And they're looking to finish it on a high note when they go for gold this Sunday at 2 p.m. against Headingley's U19 team. And that's going to do it for today's show. We were live today, so thanks to all the viewers that supported today's show and tuned in. We appreciate your support. And just that's going to do it for today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. Stay tuned for Thursday's edition of Coffee with Graeme. We've been doing Championship Rewind, 2 segments on 2 teams, but now we're going to change it up a little bit, and we're going to bring you guys season preview, and we're going to do it on the Winnipeg Avros. And after great season last season, they made it to the finals. They weren't able to finish it off due to COVID-19, but we're going to be recapping their championship season a bit. Well, not their championship season, but their run to the finals last year and a little bit, and we're going to be previewing their season going into this year in league play. So excited for you guys to see that season preview featuring the Winnipeg Avros, and I can't wait to get that rolling. And until next time, I've been your host of Coffee with Graeme, Graeme Forsyth, signing off. And until next time, remember, sit back, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy all our great shows here. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time this Thursday on the next edition of Coffee with Graeme. Graeme Forsyth, signing off.